need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
Happy July, everyone. For those of you watching on YouTube, you are saying to yourselves, it's finally happened. Betsy is finally just giving up. That's right, guys. I mean, I did put on mascara and eyeliner and some lip gloss for you, but I did not shower. I literally crawled out here to my cottage because I am pregnant in July. I am 28 weeks pregnant in July, and it is hot and muggy, and the cottage has no air conditioning. I could easily install one, but this is like my one escape from air conditioning. At home, I don't get to control the thermostat. My husband's just like, put on your onesie and stop complaining. And he's like, you can put on more clothes, but I can't take off more clothes. I'm like, okay, fine. Makes sense. We don't want to scar our children for life. But anyway, I'm literally in polar fleece year round. I just ordered a bigger size onesie to accommodate my protruding belly because I wear $25 Amazon polar fleece onesies year round the minute I walk in my house. Is that TMI? Look, guys, not only have I given up visually and stopped putting on makeup for you, stopped showering for you, but now I'm also fully revealing warts and all, what really happens in the Helmuth household. So yes, I get home no matter what time. Could be 4:30, 5:30. I'm going to go home after this 7:30 and put on my polar fleece onesie and shiver. I'm going to put on my thick black sports socks, and I'm going to make tilapia that nobody else will eat but me, and everybody else will just sit there and complain about and push on their plates. And that's me living my best life, guys. But now that I've hit rock bottom, well, maybe not rock bottom. I think it's going to get worse than this, and certainly it could get worse than this. But I'm not sleeping. I'm hot. I'm sticky. I like the heat, but I'm not thriving. Let's put it that way. Not thriving. And those of you on YouTube can see it's evident. So I apologize. But this is what you're getting. This is as good as it gets right now, guys, because I literally did not sleep last night. I tossed and turned and watched the hours tick away, and I was actually tired. I just couldn't get comfortable. I'm already there. Enough about me. The one thing that is going well is that I've planned a little baby sprinkle. So for like our local friends, we're going to have a little baby sprinkle because my kids want to get excited about this baby and my daughter really wants to have a party. So we're just inviting a few local families, but it has given me a new drive, a new purpose. And so I'm really motivated to finish my house. I'm motivated not only because we have an upcoming baby sprinkle in August, but also because it's July. And July is one of the biggest months for home sales besides January. So finally, we're seeing some decent prices. I mean, I've been so dispirited by the prices ever since the major increase. It's been pretty much industry wide in December and January. So I'm just finally getting excited again. I'm making some choices again. My kids are making some friends again. So it feels like this might be a more permanent solution, right? This home. And so I might as well commit and finish what I've started in terms of the decor. So I just went actually right before this and picked up some picture frames that I won at an auction. I got 7 frames for $5 at an auction and only had to drive 25 minutes each way in rush hour. I consider that a win. But yeah, so slowly but surely, I think things are going to come along. And I always think it's good to have a deadline. So I had that big deadline before the holidays and I did a major push. And now I have another big deadline and hopefully I'll do another big push. And speaking of push, then the baby will be here and I won't do any pushing after that. We'll stop the pushing after that. So there we go. Is that TMI? Was that whole thing TMI? Sorry, guys. Let's dig into the mailbag because you've got burning questions for me and I can't wait to answer them. And don't worry, guys, even though soon I'll be going on maternity leave and all that, I still am hungry for your questions. Keep it coming. I'm actually going to bank quite a few in advance, so I need even more questions than I typically do because I won't be recording for the first couple months when I have the baby, but I'll have backlogged episodes ready for you. But I can't have those episodes ready for you if I don't have your questions. So you need to go to affordableinteriordesign.com/podcast. Once again, that's affordableinteriordesign.com/podcast. And you need to send me your questions so that I can record lots of episodes in advance so that you don't miss a beat while I am resting my feet. There you go. Okay. Let's dig in. My first question comes from Christina in Rochester. And Christina, my husband is also from Rochester, New York. He's from a small village right outside the bigger city, but we would go to Rochester all the time. His mom just moved away from Rochester, so now we don't really have much reason to head back, except he does have a reunion coming up, high school reunion. So there you go. But thanks for sending in your question, and I can't wait to answer it. Here we go. We are finally upgrading our IKEA bedroom furniture with the Our House Miller bedroom set and the Kinnan bed. We are choosing that one in Vance Olive. Since we are redoing the furniture, I want to take this opportunity to put a fresh coat of paint on the walls. I would like something exciting, but also something timeless, something that would go with the hues of our new furniture. The bedroom has 2 north-facing windows, one east and one south. I'm open to dark or light colors. Thank you. Well, first of all, let me describe the furniture because the pictures that you sent me are really good in terms of the architecture, but it seems like none of the furniture that's currently in this space is the furniture you'll be having because the Our House Miller bedroom set is very different than the dressers and nightstands I'm seeing in these pictures. So first of all, it's much more contemporary, whereas it appears now that the pieces that you have are contemporary / transitional. I love the style of these new pieces, and I really do adore Our House. I'm planning on using some Our House in my design for the downstairs because the pieces really can straddle different style lines and they look so unique. It can be hard to pinpoint exactly where they're from unless you know this website well. But I love the walnut finish on the case goods. So you can definitely see the wood grain. It's a mid-tone walnut. It looks very natural and yet it has very clean lines and is sleek. I love the fact that it has the rounded dowel pulls. I love the fact that the sides are even rounded. So I think that this is a really lovely choice in terms of the case goods, even though I just have to say it, guys. I just have to say it. I wouldn't buy a bedroom set typically. So I might do 2 of the same nightstand, but then I would have each dresser be different. Or I might have the dressers, the tall and the low, be the same if I was going to do 2 different nightstands. So it does bother me a little bit that you said that you're going to use this complete set because that is not very designerly. But I'm going to look past that and give you some advice. But I had to get it off my chest. Then you mentioned that you're going to be getting the Kinnan bed in Vance Olive. And that's a very deep green olive color. It's a velvet. And this headboard is pretty chunky. Again, rounded edges, really beautiful. It's got curved sides and it's not so high, which I think will work really well in this room because the ceilings don't appear to be much higher than normal. So I think you're on a good path. The one thing I will say is all of this furniture is pretty dark. You know, the walnut wood tone, while it's mid-tone, it does read dark on their website. And then, of course, that deep olive bed reads very dark and is very dark. Now, you mentioned that you want to do something bold yet timeless. And when I'm hearing bold, I'm either hearing dark neutral, right? or I'm hearing color. Now, if I was going to choose a color, we already have a prominent color in this room with the olive green. The key piece in this room, the bed in the bedroom, is going to be olive green. So you'll want to create a color palette that has that color as part of the 60-30-10, right? But you're going to need an inspiration piece. Now, you haven't told me what your inspiration piece is for this room. So if you were going to do a Roy G. Biv color for the walls, you would want to derive it from that inspiration piece. You would want to use it as a part of your 60-30-10. And I would never arbitrarily tell you, do this color, do that color, right? Now, we do want to be mindful that we don't want the room to get too cool because, for a number of reasons. You don't want any color palette to just be too cool because it's not dynamic and interesting. But also, I'm sure I've told you the tale. Is this TMI? Oh my gosh, this whole episode's TMI. This is why I should never record after 6 o'clock at night. Not only am I a little bit hangry, I'm also a little bit unfiltered. But when I lived in our last space, I had a very blue bedroom, and I was looking to hire somebody to work at our firm to do feng shui because I thought that would be a great addition to our offerings. And in order to truly do feng shui, you have to be certified, you have to go to years of schooling. I love to dabble, and I think I know a lot about feng shui, but if I was going to charge somebody for my feng shui services, I would expect that I had had plenty of education and maybe even some certifications in that, which I do not. So I was going to hire this person. So I had her come over to do kind of an interview and assess her skills. And so I was going to have her look at my bedroom just because that was the room that felt most unfinished, or the room that I felt, I don't know. I just thought that she could kind of sum things up. I already had some feng shui ideas for that room, so I wanted to test her a little bit. But the one thing that she said that was right on is that because the room was so cool, it was shades of navy, slate blue, and gray. I was basing it off of an inspiration piece that was a sort of panorama of the roofs of Paris. And so, if you can imagine that in your mind's eye, that's the exact palette that you'll see: the navy, the slate gray, the lighter grays, the lighter blues. Anyway, she was saying to me that this icy palette in the bedroom is maybe making things a little frigid, not only color wise, but also romance wise. And she was not wrong. At that time, my husband and I had kind of an icy, intimate relationship. Now, it wasn't like we were struggling hardcore, but also I was, raising two toddlers, not in the mood. TMI, guys. I warned you. I warned you ahead of time. And I'm sure some of you have been there, and I'm sure I'm going to be there in just a few months again. Anyway, she said that you need warm colors in this room. You need to light the fire. You need to ignite some passion. And so I got a new rug that incorporated the icy blues, the grays, but also hot pink. And I popped the room with 10% hot pink. Like, I made bold choices. Pretty much the minute she left, I went online to find this rug to really set a huge color palette foundation because I didn't want to change out the artwork. I didn't want to change out the bedding, but I wanted to bring in a bold splash of hot color. And then I got a bolster that was hot pink. Excuse me. I got a throw blanket. I added other touches, and it was amazing. Either it was my mental shift or this dash of hot pink, but it really did spice things up. And so I highly recommend that you think about that. Now, you don't have to go for pinks or reds, even though those are typically the colors of passion. You could do something like something beautiful with a green would be like a yellow ochre, right? And that's warm. Um, Excuse me, I have indigestion, guys. I'm a hot mess. You could do rust, right? So rust would really look great with the olive green. But the thing is, you want to be quite intentional. And typically, instead of creating a color palette first and then finding an inspiration piece that goes with that, I find the inspiration piece first. So I found that rug. knowing that I had to work with navies and grays if I wanted to keep the rest of the items in the room, and looking for something that had that pop of warmth. So I'm going to recommend that you think about that when you're looking for your inspiration piece, because I could see this room getting dark and getting muddy based on the items that I saw. I also think that even though you told me that this room has a good size, an amount of windows, that these cropped curtains over the radiator are not really working for me, and they might be eating up some of that good light. So you want to be thinking about that if you're going to do a dark color. And it's very strange to me that some of the windows are treated and some of them are not. Right now, there's 3 untreated windows and there's 2 windows that are treated. And so you want to keep that more consistent so that all the windows have the same treatment. Um, and that might mean that because there's a radiator under 1 or 2 of the windows, that might mean that you do a blind or something more minimal. So I'm not saying you must do drapes in here, but all of these things need to inform the paint color. And typically, when I'm designing a space, this is full disclosure, I pick the paint color at the end. Now, many of you are saying, Betsy, that's not practical. My painter needs to know my paint colors before I move the furniture in, or I just need to get that foundation going, and then I'll pick something later. And that's fine if you're just doing a neutral. But if you're wanting to go bold, if you're wanting to do these splashes of color or do something really intense, it's quite important that you pick out all the furnishings in advance and pick the color at the end, because I can choose from literally thousands of paint colors, but I can only choose from a handful of inspiration pieces that I love that are going to have both olive green and yellow ochre, right? So this is a way that you can narrow things down and work systematically to make sure that everything looks great together and that your paint color, rather than feeling like an afterthought, feels like an intentional augmentation of the design you've started to create. All right, Christina, you got a dash of TMI, you got some philosophies, you got a little Betsy Smackdown on your bedroom set, a little bit of everything for everyone. Let's go to my next question. My next question is from Tanya, and Tanya is writing from Bonnie Lake, Washington. She says, Betsy, our house has 2 living rooms, and one is a TV room and the other is a piano reading room. It's still a work in progress. We recently painted it and it's a little bolder than expected, but I like it. I want to add some pink magenta accents, pillows and pink or patterned upholstered chair at the piano. I know I need a rug still and a coffee table. My question is, how do I make this room more inviting? And if you have time, what type or shape of coffee table should I do? White, wood? Thank you for your time and for your podcast. Well, thanks for writing, Tanya. So, yes, let's solve some problems. So, it sounds like you're wanting to make the room feel more cozy, more welcoming, and then you also need that coffee table shape. All right, well, first, let me describe the room for those of you who are not watching along on YouTube. Okay, so let's get in there because you've made some bold choices, and I did see that you sent a second email that I want to address just because they go hand in hand. So, just a little bit later, you wrote, Hi, Betsy. I previously submitted a question, just sending you a picture of a different viewpoint. Our dining room is more traditional and wood and more heavy than the living room that I'm focused on. I would eventually like to get a different set or more modern chairs to the set. Try and tie the 2 rooms together more. Thanks again. So, the reason that I brought up your second question is because the 2 rooms do open out into each other, and it wasn't obvious from your first question. So I'm really glad you sent this follow-up, because right now the living room is like a shade of what would I call this? It's not really teal. It's more like an ocean blue, I would say, because it's definitely more blue than green. And there's a few different styles going on. So I'm feeling conflicted. We've got a Sputnik chandelier in the living room that's white. Then we have a small geometric mirror that's really too small above that sofa, because remember my 50 to 75% rule. This looks very small above the sofa. So while I love this hexagonal shape, I do think that the size is making it too small for this area. But turn it vertically and it could go in lots of different places in this room. All right, you have two sofas with rolled arms, and they're both navy on sort of a gray plush carpeting. And the thing that's bothering me about this is that you appear to have several styles going on. At the piano, you've got a tapered leg chair that looks like it's in a blue velvet. But then this rolled arm situation is making me feel that you've got a traditional vibe, or I'm sorry, not traditional, transitional vibe. But then the Sputnik, the tapered leg is taking me in a mid century modern direction. And then your lamps have crystal bases that have cubes stacked on top of each other. But the shades are quite bold with these sort of organic jelly bean type shapes in mid century modern colors of light olive, tangerine, like a powder blue. So I'm feeling like this room has a bit of a loss of identity. I'm wondering what your 2-word phrase is. I'm also wondering what 2-word phrase you want to embody, because when I'm looking into the dining room, the furniture is really very traditional. So the table and chairs and hutch all appear to be a matching set with ornate carvings. It's like a mid-tone warm kind of honey wood. It's totally incongruous with what we just saw in the other room. Now people write me and they say, Betsy, this is the problem I'm having. This is the question I want answered. And as you guys know, I'm going to give you a lot more advice, suggestion, whatever. I'm going to tell you what I see. Now, I don't do this with my clients, right? Well, I kind of do. It depends on the client, but I don't do this with friends. Let's say that Tanya was at my house and we were hanging out, or she, let's say, invited me to her house, right? She invites me to Washington for barbecue or whatever. It starts to rain. We go inside. She says, Betsy, what do you think of this room? How can I make it more inviting? Would I tell her that the two rooms look like they're coming from totally different magazines? Would I tell her that these transitional sofas seem totally out of place in this mid-century modern vibe, and that this heavy, chunky, traditional dining furniture that you tell me you're going to be getting rid of is just so dominant in the other room that I can't even imagine it gone until you show me what you're going to replace it with? Because I need to know what direction we're swimming in here, Tanya. But I would not be telling you that. I would only answer your question. However, when you write into my podcast, I'll tell you whatever the heck I want, because I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I can go there. You've asked me, whereas at a barbecue or something, I try and keep it light and try and just answer what they've asked. So if I was going to make this more inviting, I feel like it's inviting and cozy enough. I've given it a bad rap, but it is actually a sweet little space. I think it just feels all over the place. And I feel like the thing that would make it more inviting is to make it feel more cohesive and intentional. Right now, it feels like a collection of found objets. So for me, this would feel more comfortable and inviting if you had a 2-word phrase that you would actually stick to for both rooms that open into each other. If you would get a larger piece above the sofa so that it feels more proportional. If you would take the kind of spread out linear alignment of artwork that you have spanning from across the fireplace mantle all the way above this cubby bookcase, and instead turn it into kind of a asymmetrical configuration above the fireplace that doesn't extend past the mantle. I think that could be really cool. Kind of this curated mini gallery wall above the fireplace, because I love all the colors in this artwork. And I love the idea that you're open to a lot of color in this space, which is really not what we're seeing in your dining room. But right now it feels really haphazard, and it feels like you kind of are just hanging things on pre-existing nails versus doing something intentional. The other thing that I think would really bring the two rooms together is doing the same window treatment that's in the living room and bringing it into the dining room. Now, in this case, your living room windows are bare and your dining room windows appear to have like a navy patterned drape. It's hard for me to tell exactly. But I would continue those same drapes as long as it aligns with the color palette that you're going to create with some kind of inspiration piece that you're going to bring in here. I would bring those same drapes into these windows in the living room. And I think that will make a huge difference and make it feel warmer and more inviting because we're breaking up all these sort of ocean blue walls with a warmer texture being the warmth of fabric. Well, Tanya, that was a lot. That was a lot. And now you're never going to have me over for a barbecue, even though I promise I'm a better barbecue guest than I am podcast host, because podcast host, I have no filter. You guys learn about my sex life. You learn all the things I don't like about your space. And then, of course, you learn the things I do like about your space. Tanya, let me end on a good note. Let me end on a positive note. I love the fact that you've taken bold choices with your wall paint color. I love the fact that you have playful tchotchkes on your floating shelves. I love the fact that you're obviously not afraid to take some risks. And I am excited for you to channel all this energy into something that feels cohesive and based around an inspiration item and also based around a 2, or as you devoted listeners know, a 3-word phrase. All right, everybody. Note to self, do not record when I'm hangry. I'm going to go make that tilapia. I hope wherever you are, you're having a delicious meal. And until next week, bye. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.